A real boss having a business, you know. Yo, Siva. Buck a girl from UTech, say she a study business. Me tell her say pussy a me body business. Say she have a man, me say me no business.
Moma.
If you do it, that a fi me and fi your business. But cause I know in a body business.
he gone?
Me a
I'm here.
pussy down like he business. He girl back shot a my cocky business. Me no yam selfish, that a hockey business. Money, girl, you have a lot of business. And every title woman have a proper business. When you see your period, take a holiday. Me a figure invest in another business. Trick a girl, fuck a girl, scam a business. CJ Wawa, hammer business. Can't see no roots for do baba business. Any man touch it, creagle a rubber business. Me a bleach. Medieval business. Face white like flower, no evil business. Bad mind is a evil business.
Yes. This is Moma and
Rude boy.
we've got a special guest today.
West Indian Archie.
Yes. So we're about to get into it again for another great podcast. You know, I've been reading Archie's stuff for a while, and definitely his posts and his threads are some of my favorites because he really gets into this game and different concepts in a very deep philosophical level that kind of appeals to the type of things, the type of way I think, which I would kind of branch it or bridge it into social psychology and so on and so forth. So yeah, we're about to get this going, and so Archie, just kind of give us a little bit of background of, I guess, where when it started for you and so on and so forth.
Well, given that my father's Jamaican, my mother's Jamaican, some of it might be genetic. I'm sure. I think I'm one of three sons from three different women, so which is very typical for Jamaican parents. Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. But yeah, I was born in Brooklyn. My parents split up. Grew up in Texas. I've traveled. Traveled all over the states: Florida, Chicago, Ohio, Pennsylvania, LA, San Diego, Vegas. I've been to a lot of places in the States, Mexico, Canada, Jamaica, Cayman Islands, Spain, France, Italy, and Japan. So I've touched on a little bit. I've been doing game probably since maybe 99. So this is probably 16 years in the game. I've had maybe 4 or 5 LTRs, been on the marriage track twice. Um,
Whoa. Marriage trick? What do you mean? You were married twice?
no, I was
Oh,
gonna get married, but
okay,
kind of
okay,
the
okay,
thing sort of fell apart. It is what it
okay,
is. It's one of those
okay.
things.
Continue. Sorry.
Um, I want to say my style of game is it's influenced from like uh what my friends are like. My friends are all sort of in the entertainment business, like local entertainment, like clubs, DJs, promoters, industry people, that type of thing. It's also influenced by the internet. I was reading all that stuff, when Style and all those guys were on ASF way back when, before it was a thing. And like I tried, I said to one, I did the threes and sevens thing to one girl, and I banged her. And like after that, I knew like, all right, cool. There's a lot more to this. And then I also have my a couple toes in traditional Black American game, a couple toes in traditional West Indian game, and so all those things kind of come together. And then I notice a lot of stuff, and I write a lot. Just like even when I'm not, I mean, outside RVF, like most of my job is reading, writing, and talking to people. So that's
Interesting.
kind of where I come from.
Okay, definitely. I think it plays out definitely in your writing because you saying that that's part of your job. I guess it definitely makes sense. When you talk about, I don't know what threes and sevens are. I'm really in
Oh,
terms
the
of
threes and sevens. All right.
yeah.
So here's a like the girl was 19. She was Italian. Nice brown hair, luscious body, kind of my type, like brownish skin for a white girl, I guess. So I said to her, like, the way the routine works is, do you believe in ESP? And most girls do. They believe in all that sort of mystical, crazy stuff. But it doesn't matter what the answer is. So you ask her, like, all right, think of a number between 1 and 4. Is it 3? Oh my God, it's 3. All right. Maybe that was just lucky. Um, And then you think of another one. Think of a number between 1 and 10. 7? Oh my God, it's 7. You're so tired. And then they just kind of like they are sent off on like this sort of like, I can't believe I found somebody like you type thing. And like it works particularly well with the typical target market between like say 18 and 24. Young, impressionable, looking for a father figure, looking for somebody smarter, better, stronger, richer than they are. And
It's
so like I did that and like I think that was the first time I got like first night anal. That was like that was like and I'm not even into that, which is just interesting. But like she was into me.
damn.
Damn.
And like once, like and that is like straight out of the whole, white guy from LA, Toronto pickup artist manual. Like that is not anything mysterious or magical. That is just like a couple lines and like it gets such a interest, such a reaction. It's like, whoa. And so like once you start seeing that basically that you can say a couple words to a girl and her whole picture of you changes, then you start to understand the game. Like there's a lot of parts of the game. There's a lot of ways to get there. You can dress well, you can work out, you can make a lot of money, you can be really funny, you can be very perceptive, you can be very intelligent. There's just a lot of ways that you can get to a chick because chicks like they say that they want like this, 6 foot tall, blonde, billionaire, shade the gray type of dude, and then like they end up fucking a guy like me, you know, or they they sleep with a guy that has like a beer belly, or they get with like some other guy because what they say they want and what they actually do are always two different things. And it flips to us too because I'm not constantly banging 5'4" D cup Latinas, which is what I like. Like there's a couple white girls sneak in there, what I'm saying? A couple like black lizards will sneak in there and like, you're 5'10". You look like Amber Rose. You're attractive, but you're not really what I want. But yeah, we'll make it work. So it is what it is. Like you just have to think about there's so much flexibility in everything that we do, and the mind on both sides, on your side, on her side, is so susceptible to what you say to her and what you do to her.
Uh,
And so
Archie,
yeah, I mean
Archie,
that's the game.
Archie, you know what? You're just coming in here. You're just dropping dynamites all over the place. Just for people that are listening, we were speaking to Archie half an hour before, and it was just like I was too busy taking notes and stuff. But um, the
So yeah, I've
concept
been
now. This is a big concept. Sorry I had to cut you there. This because I have a really good question for you.
sure.
In terms of what you said, girls say they want this 50 Shades of Grey type of dude, and obviously, I've never met a guy like that, but they turn around and they end up, like you said, dating the fat guy, this guy, that guy. On a personal experience, I think girls that I've dated, when I look back at the guys that were before me, I'm always shocked at like, what did you see in that guy? And maybe you can explain on that a bit, or
I
I guess you're talking
love
about the connection, right? The connection is it, why the
sure.
fat guy got in there and why, you know,
Let me illustrate with an example because I think Moma asked about this. So I met this girl at the job. Skinny blonde girl, kind of a booty, but like acceptable for RVF standards, right? And she is as white can get, like super pale, like very. I think if she were 19 now, she would have like UGG boots on and she'd be drinking a pumpkin spice latte. She's white. So I am not that guy. Like, and the kind of girls that are usually attracted to me are usually like are they range, but like if it's a white girl, it's typically, like the granola, like, I want brown babies kind of guy, right? Kind of girl. So like like she drives a truck, she fired a gun, and we start talking, and for whatever reason, like she connects with me, right? And she's like, yo, I'm gonna go boot scooting tonight. You wanna come? And for those that are not from Texas, boot scooting is going for country western dancing at a country western dance hall. And I'm like, oh yeah, I'll come check you out. And she's like, yeah, sure. Anyway, so like I'd never been to anything like this before. Like it's very easy to avoid country and western music in Texas, if you want to. It's everywhere, but like it's not everywhere. So I showed up, and like it was like nothing I thought it would be. I thought it'd be like a whole bunch of rednecks, like, spitting tobacco into cups and just cowboy hats, plaid shirts, cowboy boots, that kind of thing. Not necessarily the best place for a black person like myself, especially one with a fro, to be showing up to, but I am fearless when it comes to that. So I get there and like she sees me and she like runs across the dance floor. Like, cause she didn't think I was gonna show up because black guys don't come to that kind of thing. So we were there, we did some two-stepping, and then out of nowhere, like they started playing some hip hop. And I'm like, do they always play hip hop? Because I've been to places before and like I would go to like a pool hall and like somebody would play If the South Would Have Won. I'm like, son of a bitch. Anyway, but they started playing hip hop and like, yeah, they play hip hop here all the time. I'm like, why does this country and western place play hip hop? But whatever it is, we started dancing and it's popping off. So we, like things are going good. Walk her back to her truck. We start to get down, and she's like I can tell that she's into me. Like she didn't expect any of this. It's just like the threes and sevens. Like she uncovered something that she wasn't expecting, and it made me bigger than what I am. And I'm looking through her Rolodex. She's got two kids, and they are white as all get out. So like she's dating one of these like rednecks, like or married to or something like that. Um, and it's whatever. So like the next night, like she comes through to my spot and we're starting to get down and I'm looking through her phone and like she's got this picture of her in a rebel flag bikini. And I'm like, really? Well, we do the do, well, I bang it out and it's great. Like she's totally into me. But and like those things always do, they kind of peter out. She wants to like, I need to spend more time with my family, and like, it's whatever. I'm a player. It doesn't matter to me. But like, so someone who's essentially, as white as all get out, like possibly racist in that sort of like weird sort of like thing where like, it's about the heritage, it's not about the hate kind of thing. Where like, yeah, right. She's still banging a black dude, and I'm identifiably black. Like I'm not, like you see me, I'm like, yeah, that's a black dude. Like I'm not sneaking in anywhere. There's no excuse, and it just happens. Like and those type of things, like where like you don't really even know what a girl is about, what she's like, what she likes until you start talking to her. So you start to work with her mind, and so you like because you know what girls expect. And if you want to bang them on a deeper level, you give them what they don't expect. You give them novelty. You give them like you're someone and I totally didn't understand at first. Like, you're kind of cute, whatever, whatever, but now you are God.
And this, sorry to intervene. This again illustrates with that podcast that was done with Rude Boy and my cousin. I think it was a week or so ago when people saying talking about you know white lizards like this and white lizards like that and so on and so forth, and you've just proved it. You know what I mean? You can't really determine because at the most granular level we're human beings and we're
Indeed.
attracted to something. Like if you're looking at porn to be more, if you want to get on a crude level, and you really got to let one fly, you can let one fly to any race on earth as long as they're a female and they've got certain characteristics which are present in all sorts of races. So the fact that you're able to get with someone who wasn't, I call it black friendly. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
She's totally into her own, and you don't come across as it was that guy's name, Don Lemon, who you're not really sure what's going on. You're who you are. You know what I mean? You're not an exaggerated version of a black person, I'd imagine, that are really like
Nah.
one spliff hanging out the side of the lip, a do rag, a bandana, and dripping with tattoos. You're not that extreme, but then you're not the other extreme where you're not even sure what you're talking to. So you're pretty much, as you said, you definitely identify with who you are. There's no mistaking who you are. Yet you're able to get with someone because you're able to tap into them on that level, which is what I understand. And as I said when I spoke to you earlier, I mentioned that this white lizard that I got with, and I mean, I wasn't looking for it because I mean, I think the forum knows my preference. That's really not my preference, but I always take a layup, and she liked me. She liked me, and I wasn't even sure. and I can be very like the village goat when it comes to that, where I'm just gonna pretend. I just go on like, if I think that we're friends, and she's kind of like, I gotta tell you something, and I'm like, this tone is a little bit, different. And she basically just said, you know what, I want to become involved with you sexually. But like I said to you earlier, she was not that type. She wasn't the type that listens to hip hop and has the big hoop earrings and plays so and so in her car. She's totally a white lizard, totally, like, you know what I mean. But when
Personally, I have problems with those kind of like that sort of like kind of white around the way girl. Like I can't pull her. Like I can't give her what she wants. Like on a like she has like a menu that she wants, and like it's hard for me to like get past that programming sometimes. And then the other thing, I just don't meet enough of them. So like I think even in like let's say really tough situations, like you're the only black guy like in a all white town, and like these people are programmed to do X, Y, and Z. Like there's usually a way, and a lot of times just getting them by themselves. Because like once you pull people out of like their social context, they get to be themselves again. It's kind of like when you're at home by yourself, like nobody's there. You're a different person than if you step out the door. Like you probably wearing your boxes. You know what I'm saying? You like probably drinking out of the drinking out of the bottle, all that kind of stuff that unsavory behavior. But you put on your shoes, put on your pants, and you head outside, and like you're a respectable person again. I think a whole lot of game is like getting that girl out of that sort of like, I'm gonna be like this and this is what I want, because she doesn't know what she wants. Like you can put something else in front of her and she's like, okay, I want that too. Boom, there you go.
what's your take on the I guess the manosphere and so on and so forth?
Honestly, like I mean the stuff like Roosh just did an interview with Obsidian, who's a black dude from DC. He used to post a lot of stuff on the PUA sites. And like I know him from that. He's also on a site called Very Smart Brothers. And like he would be kicking a lot of like pickup artist game just on that super black site. Any like I can determine how black a site is by how many black women it has, because they are basically the core of what blackness is in a lot of respects.
Sorry, Archie, what was that site again? Various what? Various?
Very Smart Brothers. It's
Very
I
smart
mean
brothers.
it's just another discussion site. They have blog posts, and like it's like they'll talk about Scandal and Beyonce, and then they'll talk about like Ferguson. Like it's just one of those kind of sites. But so he interviews Roosh, and Roosh talks about the manosphere. But Obsidian also gets into like how come there aren't enough black people in the manosphere, and Roosh was like, well, like straight up, like there's a lot of like like straight up racist in the manosphere, that they for whatever reason they get attracted to it, because like I have my personal I think that's because of Royce personally. Like and a lot of people find the manosphere through him. They're frustrated with women, then they become frustrated with society, and then they find like these zones of like these safe places for men, but it's not safe for everyone, you know? Like I used to read Royce a lot, and then I want to say back when maybe like '08 when I moved to DC, him, Virgil Kent, and Roosh were like the people that I read the most. And like it was all cool back then. And then something happened. And I was like, uh Eric, I don't mind conservative politics per se, but like when you think that the entire country's going to hell because like we're having immigrants, or we're having this, we're having that, I'm like, I can't take you seriously, because I know Royce is going to go down to El Puerto Rico and buy some really good rotisserie chicken from some illegal aliens. I know that's going to happen, and he's going to enjoy it, you know? And like I
Yeah.
know in Texas, where we have all sorts of like Republicans and like hardcore conservatives, and like all their houses were built by Mexicans. All the food they eat, even at the Vietnamese and the French restaurants, are made by Mexicans in the back. So it's kind of like you want all the pluses, you don't want any of you don't want any of the minuses, and it's like I can't really jive with that. But that's one aspect of the manosphere. The other aspect, the idea that men need to get together and combat like divorce rape, and like false rape cases. You know, I, I don't mind that per se. I think that type of stuff is important. I want to say one of the more important things that the manosphere could bring back is it's okay to be a man. Is okay to like because everywhere you look nowadays, it seems like it's not okay to be a man. Like you it like I don't, I'm not really a boxing fan. I don't really like watching, let's say, MMA. But they'll take one of those guys that like beat up the porn star, and like they'll make him the face of masculinity. Like the iconic picture of that dude was I do alpha male shit, and like that's the one you kept seeing over and over again. I don't want to I don't want to get into the conspiracy theories, but like there's a certain way that you can present people over and over again, and that changes the way everybody feels about the kind of people. And as a black person, I see that all the time happening to black people. Like we only get shown in certain light, and therefore people that don't know anything about us think about us in that certain light. They don't understand the complexity and diversity of what it means to be black. So if I see that happening to men at large, even white dudes, like yo, something's going wrong. We need to look at this. We need to be
You
back in a space where it's okay to do certain things and not be thought of negatively for it.
you mentioned a valid point, and that's why I like to pick through your stuff sometimes. And there's something you mentioned because a lot of people sometimes there might even be some people that listen to this and be like, "Oh my gosh, it's stuff for black people," and then they have a certain viewpoint. But you said something that whatever happens to black men eventually happens to white men probably maybe 5 years later. So
Yeah,
we
that
just we just experience it first, then they get it. So all the being pigeonholed as a certain, into a certain framework and so forth. That framework becomes expanded, and then the white men feel the brunt later on. So if it's not addressed at this point, all the men are going to feel it later on. And I thought that was something interesting that you brought up.
yeah. I mean, if you think about like a black male sexuality, like part of the reason that we get so much love in the white community, whether or not it's advertised, is that there's that mandingo stereotype. That we're beast in bed. We'll just lay it down. And I mean, the stereotype's actually true, so it's maybe not a stereotype per se. Maybe it's a little, maybe it's a lot of bit of truth in that, but it's like you get that cast, and like on the cool, like I mean, you guys, I don't know, I'm close to 40, and like some days I'm not trying to kill it like that. You know what I'm saying? Maybe the first couple of times, maybe if I'm like particularly into it, but like if you're in an LTR or even just like you've seen a girl for like maybe 4 or 5 weeks, man, you're just gonna put in a half-assed effort. Like you're not gonna like break her walls down. It is what it so, and then, but she'll resent you for that. Like she expects you to be, this like, bull all the time whenever she wants it because, she thinks you're insatiable. And she's, so, beautiful and enticing that like, how can you reject this? I'm like, man, I already hit that 12 times. Like nothing new's gonna happen, you know? But I think a lot of those, like, it's interesting to me how, like it's funny because there's this whole I'm against the SJWs and social justice warriors, and then at the same time they use the same language, the same technique, the same sort of thought patterns when they describe others. And it's kind of like I think it's very easy for Black people to see it because we've been on the brunt of this for so long, that you can like step away and like, okay, I see these patterns happening. Like Group A is attacking Group B, and Group B saying something about Group A, and they're all using the same sort of mentality, but they never really get the broad picture of like what's really happening. And it's sad, but I mean, I don't even know what you do with that.
That's on a deeper. Rudeboy, could you illustrate some of the those concepts again? It wiped when I redid
Yeah, I
the
guess
connection.
lately I've been reading, I guess it's MGTOW, MGTOW, men
Oh,
going
men
their
going their own way.
your
That's what that
thoughts.
was, right?
Yeah, that's what it means. I mean, there's a guy, I guess he just goes on YouTube by the name of Sandman, and he has a lot of videos about this subject. And I think you posted a link or a blog to a similar site. So you probably know more about it than Moma and myself. So if you could sort of explain what it is and what your thoughts are, because for me it just sounds like kind
I,
of sounds like men just trying to turn away from women. To be honest with you, but maybe you can explain it better. You know?
to me, it's sort of like the red pill. Like it isn't really defined per se, but all right. The negative version is essentially that men are taking themselves out of the sexual dating market, and like forget chicks. I mean, if they come, they come. But otherwise, I'm gonna work. I'm gonna do my own thing. I'm gonna build my Lionel train set, or like get my fiberglass boat, whatever it is. And I no longer care about doing things for women. So I'm no longer gonna dress nicely. I don't care where I live. I don't care about my car. There are all these things that I care about that are separate and apart from trying to attract women. And their idea is essentially that most men, most worker bees, most drones, the reason that you go to school to get good grades and to get into college to get a good job is because eventually down the line you want to attract a woman to build a family. And so everything you're essentially doing is for women. Now, you might go about it a different way than the next man, but nobody goes to engineering school for 4 years, without a woman, in their minds. And so a lot of years are like, I'm going my own way. That's not what I want. If it means me living in the woods, or if it means me living in a house by myself, I'm cool with that. That's one aspect of it. And then you see that happening in Japan with the so-called herbivores, where these guys are just basically rejecting society. Like, I don't want anything to do with that. And I can understand that on some levels. I think some guys, I think if you come from a game background, you sort of incorporate that. Like, I will no longer do these extraneous things to attract women. I will no longer buy an expensive Porsche. I will no longer, have all this really cool stuff so that when a woman comes to my place, she's oohs and ahs. Like, there will be no crown molding in my house, you know? Be, but when you come at it from, like, say, a game perspective, it's because, like, I attract women by who I am, not me of what I have or what I do. And it's a little different, but I think in general, I think that's a movement that's going to fail, or it's a movement that's going to it's going to expand, but it's a movement that does nothing. Like their whole grand idea is that like all these men are just going to withdraw from society, and they're going to go out into the woods. They're going to have their solar cells and their well and like their little farm, and society is going to fall apart. And all those women who can't do anything for themselves, like deep, back in their mind, I'm guessing like these women come crawling to these men, who decided to reject society. And like this seems stupid to me. Like the
Yeah.
whole thing.
My whole concept on it, because I think I mentioned in the first podcast, at some point, definitely want to establish a family, and with working with lizards and so on and so forth, there is a compromise. You're working together. As a man, you are the figurehead, and I'm coming from an African background, so I see it. And when you go there, you realize what it's like to be a man. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I see the framework. It's not a conceptual something that been drawn out, and I'd be like, oh, it'd be nice if that happens. I see how men live, in that particular country, and how the women, coexist with the men. So I know. So this concept of just saying that you do this just for to attract women, I don't know if that would be the case. I mean, if I look at the men from you know Nigeria, and when they go to university, whenever they establish a business, whenever they build up something, they're trying to do it so that they can sustain their family, they can sustain their progeny. When you have kids with a woman, if you call her wife, if you call her your wife, or you call her your common law, whatever you call her, you want to ensure that your children have the best that they can. They have a stable environment. They've got the right resources to extend from you, because you can't live forever, but through your children you do live forever. You do expand on your gene code and so on and so forth, or you do prolong your gene code. So you want to make it best for yourself. It's the same way you maintain yourself now. You eat correctly, you put yourself in an environment where people are stimulating you accordingly so that you continue to grow organically in a positive fashion. So that's why someone says, well, we're doing all this for women and so on and so forth. I mean, I don't know if I agree with that. I've never been the type myself to really do that. I've always kind of been my own person. So that would be
But
my concept on it.
but Moma, just to play devil's advocate, don't you think? I know Nigeria is a more traditional society, and man is man, woman is woman. But don't you think maybe in North America, like you go to the gym, right? Most guys don't do cardio, and if you're going to the gym to be in better fitness or have a better fitness level, then you would do more cardiovascular exercises. But most guys there, what do? They do the arms and the chest, right?
I'd say with that. I mean, for me again, I'm always a little bit different. When I started the gym, I used to play sports, and I found
Not
out.
yourself though. Taking yourself out of the
Okay,
picture.
taking myself out of the picture. I mean, if you say that, then yeah. I mean, if you talk about the West, North America, or Britain, Europe, Western Europe, so on and so forth, then yeah, definitely, I think a lot of people do that to impress the lizards and so on and so forth. But what I like to do, because I've lived in different places and I've traveled within two different places, I like to take the best parts from each place and create a kind of new mentality. So I do agree that guys go to the gym, most of them, a lot of them go to the gym and they puff up their chest, they puff up their triceps, their delts, rear, side delts, front deltoids, all in order to impress the woman. They get a nice car because they know when they drive by, it reduces the amount of game that they've got to spit. So I definitely agree that they're doing that. But as I said, I don't. I look at a framework where it works, and if you talk on what I think would work, I think that getting going to the university or whatever, getting your engineering degree, your doctorate, whatever, and so forth, is really to ensure that your family has a good, a decent life as you get older.
Yeah, no, I agreed. Agreed. Back to Rosie. Rosie is Heartside, right? Heartside.com.
Oh, Royce, yeah,
Well,
yeah.
yeah, Heartside.com. Okay. Since you're on that vein, I wasn't gonna touch it, but I'll bring it up. It's been an interesting week, and what I mean by that is Krauser. Krauser had a meltdown, and his meltdown, for whatever reason, he had to, as you mentioned before, he had to make some comments about black, I guess, black people or black males. Um, Christian McQueen also had a pretty good article on Facebook where he just pretty much came out and said black men have more game than
I saw
anybody
that
else.
title, but I didn't read it because, like, I, McQueen, he's not my boy. You know what I'm saying? I respect
Okay.
what he does, but
Yeah.
sometimes when you see a title like that, like, I really don't want to. I really don't want you to reveal yourself. You know? I really don't want
Yeah.
to read something that's going to make me think badly about you later on.
No,
Continue.
it was very complimentary. I think just in a nutshell, he was saying he was in Vegas and recently, and he was in a club and he noticed, I guess, four brothers or the brothers in the club, or sorry, the black guys in the club, but they were with pretty decent looking women. And it was very complimentary, to be honest with you. And I think Moma and I were discussing it. We were just wondering, what's his angle? Whereas, Krauser just for whatever reason had this meltdown and he decided to, disparage everybody except certain segments who I think probably are some of his customers. But,
I got. I
yeah,
think with McQueen, I think
yeah.
McQueen's actually a decent dude. You know, like in terms of like how he feels about race. Like he's very open and accepting, and like everyone can excel essentially. And like if you understand his style of game, and it's very lifestyle oriented. Like I'm gonna maybe not so suited down G Manifesto style, but like I'm gonna cultivate this image about myself, and then I'm gonna put myself in situations where things can happen, you know. And like he's built his life around it. and like that's respectable. Like I give so much credit and respect to dudes like that, him and Roosh. Like I it's amazing to me that they'll do so much for this thing that they believe in. With Krauser, on the other hand, like I mean, I bought that $100 day game mastery book because like I wanted to see what he had to say, and I had $100 lying around, and it was kind of it was interesting, but I mean it's 300 pages. It looks like a textbook. It reads like a textbook, um, and it's very almost clinical. But he has if you read his blog, he has certain, he leans towards certain things that he's like, you just need to like brush underneath the surface and you'll see what he's really about. So I've always been, like a little hands off in terms of what he was pushing. Like in terms of his game, like like I've never seen the guy run game. I'm just basing this on what I've seen him write. Yeah, it works. It's plausible. Like I didn't see anything that was like, yeah, that wouldn't work in this situation, or like you need to be a certain kind of person for this to work. But you can, for me at least, it seems like he was married, had a bitter divorce, and like he started in game like maybe 2010, 2011, where he was out like going through like all sorts of hell trying to run up on chicks in London, which I don't know what that's like. Although I can't imagine going to like let's say Union Square in New York and hanging out there for hours trying to pick up a girl. That is just beyond me. I don't understand that at all. I don't understand that mentality. But there's certain things he would say, about politics, about like, you shouldn't believe this leader, and the leader he meant was Obama. Like there's always like this undercurrent. Like you can tell a lot about like where somebody's politics on like how they describe Obama. Like I don't like his foreign policy his foreign policy personally. Like I don't think we should be bombing people for no particular reason, and it creates more terrorists than whatever. But I don't want to get too political on folks. But like the way that some of these guys describe things, it's kind of like there's something else going on there. Like the whole net neutrality thing, like like the way people describe what's going to happen as a result, it really speaks to their worldview, and their worldview is typically negative and cynical, and that extends into their game. They tend to be sort of like, I don't know if cautious is the right word, but they assume the worst thing is going to happen, and and they come at it with a very competitive, antagonistic sort of a way. When I think a lot of times, when you're talking to a girl, when you're trying to get her to come on with you, it's more a cooperation. You're trying to reach that part of her that wants to have a little bit of fun, that wants adventure. And so you're cooperating with that part and you're fighting with the other part, essentially. Whereas I don't know, I wasn't surprised by his meltdown, and like he had I went to his blog to see like he like what he said afterwards, and to me it only made it seem worse. Like he tried to explain his racism or his racialism, and it's like, nah, dog. Like that's just like it seems like he doesn't even understand the diversity of white people, much less what anyone else is about.
Yeah, with what I saw, I mean, I didn't really take it seriously. I don't know if that, any people would look at me in a certain way, but like I said in my, because I was one who gave it a like, and I gave it a like because, as I said, I think I mentioned it earlier, one of the things that I like about coming to America, not the movie, myself coming to America, is that, well, all the time I lived in the UK, and then when I lived in Canada as well, I don't like all this political correctness, and the British and the Canadians are experts at brushing things over and pretending all is well. And I kind of always admired America being so raw. Like people would say something like, "I don't like yours." I'm like, wow. He just came out and said it, and I'm like, you know what? I can respect that type of person because if you look down at it, it's a very simplistic view of not simplistic in the sense that they're simple, but it's very
Cut and dry.
yeah,
Find
very
it.
cut and dry and very
Like that.
honest, very honest. And they've always, there's a saying where they say, I'd rather have an honest enemy than a false friend. And I feel that
Yeah.
places like the UK and Canada, you've got a lot of false friends that won't, really bat for you when things go sour because they've always had certain views that they don't air out. So me saying that is, Krauser meant, he came out with that. I know how Brits are. I have a British friend that's pretty, we're fairly close. We used to work out a lot. So I gave him a call yesterday, had a long chat with him. He's a white guy, and he's always like, I'm not stereotypical and this and that and that. Then I'm like, bro, I know how it really goes down. I'm not to say that he's anyway, but I'm like, I know that you're not as liberal as you claim, because when we ask certain questions, you always mold things in a certain way. And I said, bro, I'm not the type. You know me. You've known me for a while. I don't get rattled by them things. It's like I already seen your play. So me saying that is, I respected Krauser for actually being frank like that, and I know how Brits are. Brits are a very pessimistic bunch anyway. They're always moaning. They're always complaining. So the whole look and thing is always going to have this negative outlook. Often, you're always going to find someone like that. That's why they drink so heavily. And when they drink, Rudebwoy knows, he's been there. They start fighting and stabbing and shanking and hitting you with the pub glass. So I know how Brits are. Like I can read them through the forum. So if you say he has a little bit of a negative spin to him, that's only to be expected from a Brit. That's my take on that.
No doubt.
Yeah, I think for the record too, I actually find it funny. It doesn't insult me. He can say whatever he wants, and that goes to anybody. Heartsight, any of those guys, they can, I read some of his posts. Okay, Krauser, you've gone to, these third world Eastern European countries or FSU countries. You're leveraging your so-called status and your day gaming girls that probably have never met a British guy before. So I'm not making fun of him. I'm not trying to say anything, but to me, and I think to Archie and Moma, I'm sure you guys really, it's neither here or there, right?
Yeah, anytime I'm like, like I read about a guy going to like another country that I know doesn't have the same amount of money. Like I think that there's the money factor, there's the exotic factor, and that plays a little bit into your game. And like, sometimes it's a major advantage. When I went to Japan, um, I went with a dude that looks Asian, but he's not. A guy that's half Asian, a black guy myself, and like a straight up white guy. Um, we all got love, you know, and and but it can't be because of game because nobody spoke Japanese. So you you kind of go into that situation like, all right, I'm bringing something to the table that they're not used to. They're gonna try it out, and maybe they've been looking for it, and 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 so sometimes I think like you see the light in like in the Southern American threads because that's where I really want to go. But there are gringo hunters in like those countries where like they're looking for a guy that's not from there. And part of it's like like they have their own flag list that they want to check off. And then sometimes it's monetary. Like this guy can get me a green card, or if like I will love this man, give him a child just to get out of this hell that I'm in. And it is what it is. I like and so I don't know, I read because the travel board is probably the most amazing board on RVF, and it's the one I contribute least to because I haven't been to enough places trying to run game like where that's gonna be like super important to me. But like you read these accounts and folks are trying to do X, Y, and Z. They've got various factors working for them, and they really want this middle to upper class girl that like top flight guys in their own country are going for. So like if they go to Brazil, they want a top echelon Brazilian. They go to Indonesia, they want the kind of girl that the president's son would date. You know? And that's because they don't want the easy route. They don't want like the working class girl that is looking for a meal. And that to me is about ego more than it is about sex.
But that's who they end up with. Then I mean, you've read.
Sometimes, I mean, sometimes I end up with like middle class girls. It depends on how long they stay and whether they learn the language, they learn the culture. But it's the fact that they want the very best of that society, but they are unwilling to put in the work that the top Colombian dude is putting in. That to me is very telling. It's very Western.
Also, as well, when you go to a certain country, and if you talk about, I mean, if, even to go about game and so on and so forth, even in the Western countries where that I've lived in, often when money is no longer an issue, there's often lizards that now look for certain exotic things. If you talk about white lizards, I mean, in Toronto, a lot of them like West Indian guys, they go for them like crazy. There's guys that I know have come off the plane with nothing but some locks and the clothes that they were wearing. And it's like, damn, how the hell did he get this gun? He's lacing that on the carpet, on the floor, because he doesn't even have a bed. Maybe he got a mattress that he got at flipping, what you call it, Canadian Tire or something, one of them cheap mattresses that he flung down. It's like, wow, but the exotic value is there. So I think that with game, we always try to contrast whatever values that we've got in order to pique her sexual interest. You know what I mean? So,
Indeed.
yeah. So whether we
Indeed.
travel, we go to a place where it becomes very obvious, or whether we're in a place where we seem the same. We're always trying to throw out things to leverage those factors we've got. Maybe we've got a big belly, but we've got a silver tongue, or maybe we're muscular, or we've got a little bit more money in the pocket. That would be the sense. You know
Or
what I
maybe
mean?
you're staying in a centrally located apartment in an area that she would never ever live in. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
And I can't knock guys for that. Like like there's so many ways to get in. Like if like I've been working on this game compendium for like a bit, and like I realize I'm just telling people how I run game because I can easily read someone else's stuff and like okay that's how they run game, and you can compare both and be like all right both of these will work. You really end up just to try and decide this is what I want to do. This is the kind of person I want to be, and this is the kind of person I want to present. And then from there, it really just becomes a screen. Like, because sometimes, like, if like if you went left instead of right, you would have got the girl. But he didn't want to do that. Like I want to get a girl on my terms. I don't want, and then it just becomes more about ego, not about banging. And it's important to make that, to understand that, and then to own it. Like, yeah, this is really about me. This isn't really about her.
I think also that when we get into interactions, we don't, as men, we don't want to supplicate too much. And if you go to countries where it's more of a masculine vibe to it, more of a patriarchy, you see that that the men there are mostly doing things on their terms. So I think when we talk about ego and wanting to do it on our terms, we don't want to supplicate too much. If you go to these very feminine or feminist cities and so on and so forth, if you supplicate too much as a man, you lose that buzz. And I could be, I'm one of those myself. I've been to, and I'm not going to keep going on about that city, but in that city you could get the bang, but after so much supplication you feel like she's banging you. You know what I mean? So you don't feel that
You
male.
feel horrible for it.
Yeah, you don't feel like, you know what I mean, you don't feel that male energy because you're pretty much a mat. Yeah, you're getting ass and you're letting off your nuts and all that stuff, but you know what I mean, I didn't, I think that every man wants to have the majority of the interaction. They want to control the mainstay of the interaction. But let's seg into something in terms of fashion and talk about what you would your views on how I guess a black man should tailor himself. Um, when placing himself in an optimal position to capitalize on that. I mean, being physically, you could talk about just having if you know, being chubby, regular, and buff, and see, what type of, fashion one can utilize to maximize on the type of girls they get.
All
actually,
right.
sorry. Before I cut you there, yeah, you've posted some pretty edgy fashions, and I know. Yeah, I know you're into some. Well, I hate the word fashionista, but I mean I think that's probably you're into some high end fashion, and if you could explain more about that, and is that a Jamaican thing or? Where does
I
that
got,
come from?
I'll touch on it. Let's call this the external game part.
Okay.
So step one, health insurance, you need it. Step two, hygiene. So that's dental, that's your nails, like that has to be taken care of. Step three is your grooming. So that's your haircut, that's like your cologne, that's your moisturizer. Those things need to be taken care of, right? Your diet and your exercise, like you need to get in the best shape you possibly can. All right. That's 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 your foundation. Now, in terms of in terms of style, uh, what you want to do eventually is, as time goes on, like you create a style for yourself. So the kind of stuff that you wear out to the grocery store looks very similar to the kind of stuff you wear to work, which also looks very similar to the stuff you wear on a date. Like you're taking it up a notch and you're looking better in any environment that you're in. But before you get to that route, like that's something that takes a while. You have to develop an eye for that, and that a lot of that comes from, for me, it comes from like Tumblr. Like I follow probably, I probably follow at least 80 or 90 different menswear Tumblrs, and I read them religiously every day. It takes me about an hour and a half to go through all the pictures and like take and just take things that I like, make copies of that. Um, so in terms of the game, you have to decide on. There's really two ways to do it. You either become the best person dressed at the venue that's for the venue. So if you're gonna go to a hip hop spot, you've got your Versace'd out. You got your Hermes belt. You're doing that thing if that's what that place calls for. Or if you're at a high end cocktail bar, like you're in a nice fitted suit, pocket square. You've got something in your lapel. Your shoes are impeccable and everything fits. So where if you're gonna go to like a NASCAR, like a Daytona Beach type thing, you've got the best foam hat, you've got the best beer stein, like your wife beater is pristine, showing off your muscles and your tattoos. You really have to be better than all the like you have to draw attention by the way you dress. Now, that's one level where you're just the best dressed guy at the venue. The second level is you create a character. So, like, you could be the guy that wears a suit to everything, kind of like the whole G Manifesto suited down thing. So you're at the grocery store, you're in a three-piece suit. When you're at the insurance office, you're in a three-piece suit. When you're at the government, in court, or if you're getting your license renewed, three-piece suit. Where everywhere you go, that becomes a part of your identity. Like you spend your nights cleaning your shoes, waxing them, polishing them, laying out your ties. When you get your dress shirts cleaned, you get them laundered, no starch, that kind of thing. And I was doing that for a long time. That's sort of like I'm always in a suit all the time because that's my job. Like I'm always in a suit, and I noticed like when I would like leave the firm for for lunch, I would get all sorts of reactions that I never used to get in my t-shirt and jeans. I'm like, oh dang. And so it feeds itself. And so you become more and more into it. I worked right across the street from a Macy's, and I don't know, I had maybe like 60 ties from Macy's. They're all garbage. But because I was so into it, I need a tie with blue and green to match this one green shirt that I have. So the blue offsets the green, but there's a little bit of green that complements the green in the shirt. So you really have to get into it. In terms of the high end, I think when you're just starting out, uh, the main things you should be doing is I'm trying to think what your best bang for buck is buying a suit locally and getting it tailored. And so not just like the sleeves and like the pant legs, but you want them to take in the jacket to give you more of a shape, give you like a V, and that V that shows off your shoulders. No matter what you look like, you could be fat, you could be tall and skinny, you could be muscular. That V sends a signal to the women that like this guy, he's got it going on. Like he looks powerful. And then the other thing, like aside from taking in the jacket, you really want to make sure when you're buying the suit that every part of it fits. So I like most jackets that you get off the rack, they have like these huge armholes so that anybody can, get in there. Um, the more you get into suits, the more you realize where that armhole is. Because every designer, every manufacturer has like a model of a guy in their minds. So like there's slim cut, athletic cut, regular cut, and whatever your body is, you want to make sure you're in those general cuts, and then like you're bouncing from designer and maker and brand label to find the one that like fits you the best. For me personally, like Calvin Klein, for my body, at least 4 or 5 years ago, like that always fit me the best. Like I would get a 42L in Calvin Klein, and that really worked for me. Like it showed off everything about my body that I wanted to show off. At the next level of the game, when you've got some coin, that's when you start doing made to measure. And when you really got it going on, that's when you go out to Hong Kong and you get like a full English bespoke suit, $1,500. It's made for you. You decide on all I want the lapel like this. I want it peak, not notch. I want barchetta pockets. I want a hacking pocket, a ticking pocket. I want a custom inside liner. That like once you get to that level, it's going to be more about your ego and figuring out what exactly you want, because most people can't tell the difference between like a $600 suit and a $6,000 suit other than it fits. And that's what you get at that high level. I think the most expensive suit I bought at this point, maybe $1,200. And like I put on a few pounds, so it just kind of sits in my closet. So it's like, oh man, like I don't need a new wardrobe. I need to get this 10 pounds off of me. So, were you looking for more name brands or anything, Rude Boy?
No, no. I mean, I think we're on this along the same similar lines there. One of my cheapest suits is a DKNY suit. I think I got it in an outlet in Buffalo or something like that. And
Nice, nice.
I get a lot
Oh,
of compliments on it. So it's similar to what you were saying with the CK. I just, I have a vision of you wearing like Etro and Xenia and all these kind of stuff.
no,
It,
I've got a couple of Xenia joints. I think with I like like my more colorful stuff. I will go to the like a Marshalls or a TJ Maxx. I don't know if they have that where you guys are, but it's basically a discounter that
yeah.
they buy stuff from manufacturers when it's out of season, and then they put it on their racks, and it's like 10-20% of what it was. And so if I see like a mandarin orange jacket for like $85, I'll pick that up. If I see something lime green, I had like these nice aqua light blue pants, right? You rock that with a white shirt and some nice brown shoes and a nice brown belt. You stand out because no guy wears pants that are light blue, red. They don't wear stuff like that. Like they're gonna wear jeans, and if they're gonna wear khakis, or they're gonna wear suit pants, which are always gonna be navy, black, dark gray, and that's about it. Like there's not really a whole lot going on in that direction.
That's triggering the more now I'm getting that Jamaican coming out because that's a style that I'll see Jamaican cats when they get their check, they're busting that, and they're busting that with confidence. So you saying that, that's just came flashed into my head immediately, man.
Because you wear something like that, and it suddenly because the way a lot of dandies that lawyers, at least bankers to some extent, the way that they do it, like they have like this very pristine, severe looking suit, and then like you look at the socks and they're argyle. You get like when they walk, there's a little flash of color, or they'll like when you pull up the lapel, the collar on the jacket, like it's got like an intricate design that you couldn't see unless you pull the collar up, or it's got a custom liner that you'll not see unless like you're looking at the guy trying to get his wallet or get his gun, whatever the case may be. And a lot of guys, they love that. And that is kind of like that's how I would say American men think about style. They want just a little bit, that you have to notice that it's a detail. That like there's a whole magazine called Details, and that's what it's meant to be about. So like they might have a tie clip, or like the tie that they wear might be a little funky, but everything else is normal. Or they'll wear a very severe suit, normal stuff, and then have like a loud pocket square. Like that's the thing. Jamaicans, and I want to say African Americans in general, forget all that. Like when you go to Whole Foods or Trader Joe's, all those people are wearing bland, J. Crew, Banana Republic colors. You go to the hood, people are wearing bright, primary colors that draw attention to the eye. And if you manage that well, that like if you manage that well without looking too quote unquote matchy matchy or too many name brands, that will set you apart. I if you want to like say that high end bar, and you were wearing like like a nice a nice blue jacket, but would had like a orange window pane design, and it was subtle, but it'd be bright enough that like it would catch a chick's eye. Like my main weapon in that realm, like if you're not gonna go super colorful, buy yourself a pink shirt. A nice pink dress shirt kills, kills. Like because men don't wear pink, and they're afraid of it. But like I don't know, I've got maybe a dozen pink shirts,
What would the
and
pink?
like I
What would it go with? Like I've kind of toyed with it, but I'm kind of shook to
all right.
start getting pink. You know what I mean?
If you're wearing if you're in a suit, let's say you're doing a nice a charcoal gray suit, you the pink works fine with that. Just a nice pink will just fit on that perfectly, especially during the springtime. If you're doing jeans, then you do like a pink polo, right? And then you could offset that. You get like a lime green or a mint green polo too, if like that sort of brightness, like because there are a lot of colors that guys shy away from. Another one, that guys shy away from is lilac. Like like these are like pink and lilac are very girly colors, but like you put that on, especially during the springtime when like the flowers are trying to bloom and open up, like like girls was like, oh wow, like they will notice you, and once they start noticing you, like well then you could then just the fact that a girl notices you to me that you should open her, like oh that's a nice shirt, hey well how you doing, blah, 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 blah. And like you just start, or like she's giving you an in even if she didn't mean to give you an in.
Agreed. What kind of tie would go with the pink shirt?
With the pink shirt, I would probably do there's a couple ways you can do it. And it really depends on what else you're wearing. But I would go with like a light blue to complement, or I would go with I wouldn't go red. That's kind of overdone, and I wouldn't go pink on pink. Hold on. Yeah, I'm doing Airbnb right now. There's a quick segment with the other guy.
No problem. No problem.
All right, so pink shirt.
Light blue
Like
tie. Yep.
yeah, a nice light blue tie. I would also go. You could also do like a wool gray. It really just kind of depends. But you can do red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. Yeah, I would go with like I would go with oftentimes I would go with like a light blue.
Okay.
That typically works.
Okay. Cool.
And
So,
just to add to that, sorry about that. Just to add to that, again, as black, you know, black men, there's a lot of colors that we should be wearing that we don't. One of my colors that I like to wear is orange, a lot of red, and I've seen if you look at some of the even the polo ads, there's a dark skinned guy, handsome guy, and he's wearing purple, like a purple. I think purple on a dark skin looks. It just sets you apart from the masses, right? So
Yeah, yeah, and it's what's interesting is like when you start going like I don't know how many in the South there at least in Houston, Austin, like I go to a black club and like there's like the typical hip hop wear, then there's the typical high end designer wear, and then there's always a couple guys in the suits, and like it's like it's not a Sunday suit, it's not like tomato red, but it's nice enough, but you start to see things and sometimes those guys in suits they stick out and it draws attention, and sometimes they blend in. So you really have to consider that whenever whatever venue you go to, if you're trying to dress better than the venue or just dressing to impress, it might impress you to get through the door, but it might not mean anything to the lizards, if you feel me. So then it becomes more about you. This is how I want to look, not because I want to attract people.
okay. What about hipster style? Have you got any insights or there's a guy on the forum that I think he's distant light and I think he's quite hipster. If that I don't really know these terms that well. I would imagine that's hipster. Maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm right. But what's your take on the hipster style?
I think that's kind of I think for he's like 25. I think for guys his age, that is kind of the dominant style. Well, because you can always look like a homeboy out of a rap video, but like now rap videos, those guys like Young Thug and like Earl Sweatshirt and Tyler the Creator. It's like skateboarding, it's punk rock, it's EDM, and all. To me, it looks like a bunch of guys in tight jeans. They wear tight jeans. They wear like high top sneakers that have all sorts of stuff on them, and they wear
Lumberjack shirts, and they have the arm sleeve tattoos, right? And then
the
they have
white
the
guys look like that, not the black guys. The black
okay.
guys don't tend to look like that to me. Um, and so it really it's one of those things like it's a subculture look, and I think it's if you're that young, I think it's a good move. I think it's a good move to have that sort of subculture. Like, I look like ASAP Rocky's probably the top dog in that, where he mixes in like the high designer and like the low fat the street culture, the street fashion, and he puts those things together. A good place to see that, if you want to get an idea of what that looks like done well, there's a site called styleforum.net, and there's a classic menswear side that if you everything about suits you ever want to know, it's on that side. But there's also a streetwear side. And if you want to see that to the next level, where they're talking about Marc Jacobs and Rick Owens and all those kind of guys, that's a good way to see that and see how that's done well. But to me, I think to me to wear some of that stuff takes even more courage than wearing like a lime green suit. That it's kind of like that to me just screams young, and I am not young.
Yeah, it kind of seems more. I mean, there's nothing wrong. It seems more metrosexual, and I don't have a slim frame for that. I'm pretty stocky, so that tight stuff. Like, I didn't know if I tried. I think I was in Buffalo once, and some I'm trying to think of the right word. He was a gay guy, and he was like, I didn't know what the trousers were like. I was like, well, these trousers look kind of small. I'm kind of looking for something that not baggy, but I want them to be, decent and so forth. And he recommended something. It was tight, so I think he's trying to be sly or something. But the point is, tight trousers. Trousers are pants for Americans. Well, tight trousers don't work for me. I also have pretty muscular legs. I'm not trying to boast and all of that, but it is what it is. And that type of, I don't have the drain pipe or the chicken legs where that narrow pants look's gonna work for me. So I think it may depend on one's age. I'm not 25, but even when I was 25, I don't think I could have rocked that stuff because I've never been a drain pipe type of guy anyway. I mean,
Yeah, I gotta say a lot of that fashion looks best on people that have that body already. So yeah, I mean, it's not something I would flirt with. I think if you do touch on that, like maybe you buy like a Misfits t-shirt or like a Danzig t-shirt, and you buy a studded belt and put on your jeans, and that's as far as somebody that has like a more typical African frame, should do. But yeah, if you're the typical dude, you got thighs, you know what I'm saying? Your gluteus maximus is maximizing, you got a little muscle on you, and that sort of style doesn't look so great on us. I think on the other side, like the white guys with the whole lumberjack look, that looks cool for them. And then but when we do it, we look like Rick Ross.
But it's not cool though when you see like 20 guys in a club dressed like that, though. I mean, like, I'll give you another example. I was in Sweden in September, and I was walking down the street, and there were guys just dressed like how you stated. So there was four guys coming towards us. Two of them, they all had blue sport coats on. Two of them had orange pants, and two of them had red pants, and they had the pocket square, and they had the glasses. And one by itself would have been cool, but when you see four guys just like that, you kind of lose something, no?
Well, here's my take on that. That's what I would call a quote unquote entourage game. So if you show up to a club where everybody's all dressed hipstered out, and like you and your boys are suited up, you set yourself apart, and people are going to look at you. And if you can dance and if you're cool, if you got a nice social vibe, that's actually very attractive to a lot of the girls there. Um, but on the other hand, like I've lived in New York, where like you walk into a spot and that's what all the guys are wearing. They get their suit jackets, they get their sports coats, their jeans, and like everybody's wearing that, and like you don't stand out at all. It's just a uniform. And so you kind of like that's I think that to me that's part of the downside of the whole suited down look. Like if you're the kind of person that can afford a custom suit and you're probably wearing that all the time and your peer group is wearing that all the time, you're never really going to shine. The only time that I was really killing it was when I was walking to lunch or getting on the train or getting off the train. Like somebody, a girl would like, give me the eye or something when I'm not. when I stand out in a crowd of a bunch of other people. Like when I was in like I've worked in a lot of places in Texas. Austin is very casual. So if I would wear my suit like, to the local spots, just for lunch or just for dinner, like, oh, what's the occasion? And I'm like, it's Tuesday, I'm just here to get the pizza, and like, oh, I don't know, because that whole environment is very not casual. So you stand out and you draw attention to yourself. So you really have to think it's not just what I wear, but it's also where I'm going and how I expect to be perceived. Um, but yeah, sometimes you just look like a clown. It's kind of like when I would show up to a spot with my hip hop looking boys, and I'm all hip hopped out, and we go to a spot where that's not happening. You feel bad. It's like everyone here is more dressed up than we are, and we're getting the side eye from everybody. I'm like, all right, we're gonna bounce. So
Yeah, I went to a spot with a guy from the forum, Clint Barton. He took me to a spot uptown in New York. I think I hit you up on PM. I was asking because I think I gauged from your writing that you and Timoteo were from New York, and I really didn't know New York, so I wanted to find spots to go. And I think you mentioned something like Williamsburg or something like that, which I don't know if I checked out or not. But anyway, I went to a spot in Manhattan, and it had what's her name? Janae Montaigne. They were doing something.
okay,
Yeah, they're doing some kind of music genre that I've never encountered before, but it's called Afro punk. So it was different. I'm always
yeah,
into
yeah.
different stuff. But I never knew what was going on. I was looking at these people, but they were all dressed hipster in there. They were all
That particular brand of hipster is called boho, boho.
okay. Yeah, it was interesting. I was looking. I was like, wow, this New York style is interesting. Like you'd have a guy that would wear I think he had like a shirt with a tie on and the glasses. You know the glasses, I guess it's the frame or the lens they're not really prescription lens. Either the lens are in or they're not.
Yeah,
And then he'd wear like shorts or something. So that kind of almost like a schoolboy who got out of school and couldn't be bothered to take his tie off type of look. But it was interesting. So I like how they experiment in New York. So let's go into talk about I guess Jamaica. And you mentioned some things earlier that you said that part of your game you take a little bit from African American game and West Indian game, which I would say I'm pretty familiar with West Indian game and African American game. I really only know from the movies and hip hop. So it's your take on Jamaica, its influence on your game. I've mentioned certain things that I feel about Jamaican men and their approach to game. What's your, yeah, I mean,
all right.
expand on that.
I give you a taste of true Jamaican game. So I went to go see my grandmother. She lives in Florida, right? Her little retirement community has a fair amount of West Indians. So we went to Golden Crust, which is a chain Jamaican restaurant, which is weird for me even to say that, but they had one. So I'm there waiting for some oxtail, and this old school player, he had on his Kango. You could see his gold chain. Like you could smell the cologne like 6 feet away. He walks in. Way I said, sweetie, and then as soon as he opens his mouth, it's nothing but compliments and innuendo, and it's nothing but drama. It's like it's nothing but bullshit. But she's eating it up, and like the other women behind the counter is like, yeah, that goes for you too, sweetie. The black of the berry, the rest, and it was just incredible. And you could tell the dude was older than me. He looked like he's probably mid 50s or maybe even early 60s. Um, and you could tell he's been doing this since he was, 9, you know. And it like that sort of like there's a certain like you said it before, there's a certain confidence in self that a lot of Jamaicans have. And they come here and that's what allows them to succeed. I think Africans have it too. Um for whatever reason, a strong West African accent doesn't really get the same love that a Jamaican accent gets. But you see it, and I see it in my dad, who was proper Jamaican, very British, but you get him around his brethren, and it really comes out. His former Rasta lifestyle just kind of like oozes out. And then I have an uncle Horace, and I was in New York. I had to pick up. It was my birthday actually, And my dad was like, let's go to Modell's and I'll get you something for your birthday. And of course, my dad is like one of those people that like will give you $50 and then like, yo, could you loan me $50? So you end up buying it yourself. But so I bought a JanSport backpack. And as I'm in line, there's a she might have been Dominican or or Puerto Rican or Cuban, and Uncle Horace, who was my dad's not actually my dad's brother, but all your dad's friends are your uncles. So Uncle Horace was like, he was like, Archie, all right, when she asked for the money, put the money in her hand with your left and grab the bottom of her hand with your right and talk to her. And I didn't need any game advice at this level. I certainly wasn't going to try to pick up some teller from Modell's, right? But I mean, this is what is this? This is 2002, so this is a good while ago. But even at that point, I'd been banging enough that I'm cool. But yeah, I said, let me try it out. And like she, when you meet those shop girls, they are in one frame of mind where they don't where they stay on task and they never get out of their personality. And so touching her hand, like that evaporated. It broke. And like I could actually talk to her and get her number if that was possible, if that's what I wanted to do. And it, like Uncle Horace also said something like so they're driving to Coney Island for a concert. And I don't know if you're familiar with New York, but that part of Brooklyn is very Eastern European, very Russian. So we pass this big Russian woman, big, like she'd been in America too long. Um, and
Mumpy.
oh, so Uncle Horace was like, uh, you know, you think you could have that woman? I'm like, I don't know. And he says, like, if you want it, you don't a woman that big, you really only need to control one thing. And then he puts his thumb and his pointer finger together and makes a hole. It's like that's the only thing you need to control that woman.
I
And
didn't hold on. I didn't get that. He put his thumb in what?
he put his thumb and his forefinger together and made a circle, like you're
Made
making
a
an
hole
okay.
like
Okay,
Panani.
okay, okay.
Yeah.
Got it, got
And
it.
you're saying, you only need to control her banana for, to control the rest of her life. And like, I'm sure Uncle Horace has probably a bunch of kids all around the world knowing Uncle Horace. And, there's a certain like entitlement to women. There's a certain like bravado that traditional, Jamaicans tend to have. Um, I wouldn't be surprised if the Haitians had it too. And I think a part of it's because in Jamaica, especially, like you don't grow up with much. All you have is yourself. And so that's the most valuable thing there is. So you come into that situation, and then the other advantage is that, like in Jamaica, everybody is black. From the criminal, the rapist, the murderer, to the cop, the judge, the president, the prime minister, the owners of the companies. Everybody's black. So you don't have any limits
No
because all those people
hangups.
that are
No
doing things look
hangups.
just like you. So when they come to this country, like like they just lay waste. Like they just like they come to especially New York, and if they're business minded, like they have their own business. They might run a dollar van, they have a hustle, they do something. They make a little rice and peas and sell it on the side to the Jamaicans at the job. It's this constant hustler mentality, and you get that because like a lot of foreigners in general, they come to America and they see this is wide open. Like people here don't even haggle. Like you're really gonna pay $5 for this? Oh, really? You're like you're not gonna try and get me down to 350? Man, this place is wide open. So like I think when a true born and bred in Jamaica and used to that kind of like hustle and bustle, that kind of like that very competitive atmosphere, they come here and people they're just very cooperative, and so Jamaica is typically able to take advantage of that, and the reggae helps, the locks helps, the mystique about Jamaican men that helps. All right. Let me contrast that with typical Black American game. Black American game doesn't it's very it's flowery, like the language is just as flowery, but it leans more towards kind of like extraction, you know? Uh and you notice like when you see Yankees talk about the relationships, it's like it's very important what who pays for that first date. Like the man must pay for the first 3 dates, but the woman has to at least make a fake attempt to split the bill on the first date.
Okay.
It's very like very money conscious in a way that like it reflects a culture where you really have to like you really have to be on guard about everything, and like there's a lot of defensiveness that you see within the culture and that shows up in the game. So like the highest heights of black game is pimping, and like I don't particularly have a lot of respect for that, but I understand what they do and why they do it, and I understand that like like since they don't have anything else, they can't use their like a lot of these guys are really smart or they really understand people, but they can't use that to get a legit job, selling jet airplanes, that kind of thing. That would make them millions.
Right.
All they can do is convince the people that they're around to do things that they want them to do. And so like you see that all over the culture. And so there's a lot more of that in a Black American game than there is in West Indian game. So you'll see like like a lot of guys it's kind of like yeah like I banged her out and she paid my car note. I'm like that to me is offensive. I'm like what, you can't pay your own car note? Well, of course I can pay my own car note, but she paid for it. And you under and like when you come at it from like a straight up psychological perspective, when a girl pays for you, she invests in you and she becomes deeper entwined in you. So like making her do stuff for you pulls her closer to you. Whereas the typical American, black or what, they think that if they do things for the girl should be indebted. It's the exact opposite. When she does things for you, she becomes indebted to you. And it's a very weird thing, but she gets closer to you the more she does for you. Whereas if you do a whole bunch of stuff for her, she doesn't care. Like she only cares if she does stuff for you.
And that goes into which some people talk about when you play beta game. Is it beta or beta? I'm not sure how you pronounce it, but yeah, beta. And then you're losing out because you're actually, even though you can afford a drink, and there was a thread on appetizers, and I used
I'm team appetizer, by the way. Go ahead.
yeah, I'm pretty defensive on that because it's not a case of me not being able to afford it, but I don't necessarily like being duped. And there's a lot of lizards out there that literally have no intent of doing anything with you, but just wasting your time or wasting your money. They're not even interesting where you're like, I didn't hit that, but I enjoy that interaction. And I've been on dates where there was a lizard that she couldn't put her phone down. So I quickly made an assessment. I was looking at her and I was like, I was eating. I ordered something light because I didn't want to eat, but lizards love to eat, so they're like, "Let's go and eat something." So she's ordered something that she likes. She's like, "Oh, I love the blah 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 that they do here," and she's so on and so forth. But she's on her phone constantly, and I don't like. They do that a lot in North America. They're always in their smartphone, texting, tweeting, Instagram, BS. So I'm looking, and I was like, "She's not interesting. You can't just because you're a female doesn't mean that I'm like head over heels over you just to be in your presence." So afterwards, I was like, "Yeah, you're covering what you ate. I'm covering what I ate." And her face was in shock. And I was just thinking to myself, I didn't even have a face like that when you just showed up. You didn't do anything. So me saying that is that I understand the fact that once you pay for things, it really doesn't work. And I was really tight to a point where ridiculously tight at one point, and then I kind of rolled with a few Nigerians, and Nigerians like to. They're pretty lavish with the money. Their game is involved making money. When it comes to women, that I found a lot of times they will just flood them with gifts. I don't know how I mean it'll work because it's more of a beta game, but it's not. It's beta, but it's not. They supplicate, but I guess due to the culture and constantly dealing and doing business, most lizards are like, yeah, I like rolling with Nigerians because I don't have to worry about paying. So when I rolled with a few, I said, you know what? Let me stop being so grimy like that. And I met a dread chick, took her out. And I think she was used to goons and all that shit, but who didn't pay for shit. But we went on a date and I just covered the drink. So I said, you know what? Let me try the Nigerian style. It wasn't a big bill per se, but I was just like, yeah, I covered it with no question, and it worked in that instance. So
I don't think it's really, it's not beta game because at the end of the day, if you get the skins, then everybody wins, right? Alpha game, beta game. I mean, it's
I
not.
think some of that stuff is just is it's a lot of guys standing on principle, and some guys are just cheap. If they don't see an immediate return, it was pointless. But for me, specifically with the appetizer thing, usually if I'm going out, there's something on the menu that I want. Maybe that's because I need to get back in the gym or whatever. But like, yo, man, them snails looking kind of tight. So for me, like sometimes I'll order something if I'm at a tapas place, I'll order like a pig ears, right? And I'll order something like that just to see how she reacts, you know? But there's a difference, there's a difference in like you ordering something because you're hungry and you ordering something because she asked you to do it. And I think that's the real key in the situation. If she's ordering you to spend money and you spend it, that's a problem.
Yeah, you've got a point there, and I think there was a manifesto thread where he talked about he goes out and she's just coming along because he was going to do it anyway. But the thing is, I don't go out that much. I don't really go out. I'm more of an activity type of person, so I don't go out and dine. That's why I look at each order like I could have done that at home myself. So I know I got to update on that. To be honest, I got to be more of a socialist. But I'm really like I go out and I'm looking like flipping hell, man. We charge me like what $6 for that wine, man. I could have bought a bottle at the ABC, and what I mean, we could have gone merry at home.
At home.
Yeah, that's just that's me, and I know I gotta work on that. So that's why I see things like that in a certain sense. And I had a thread. I dropped a thread a little while ago. I linked this chick. She was looking at me so blatantly, and I said, let me go for it. But she was like a low end gold digger. Like her play was pretty obvious, and I called her to come to my yard, and it was late. It was like coming up to midnight. So I know if she's coming at that time, it's gonna be the beats. I'm not talking about no production. I'm talking about the things. Anyway, she was like, I asked her, yeah, to come over. She said she's gonna come over. She kind of texted me or called me at close to midnight on a weekday, and she's asking me to cover her. She said, oh, you know what, someone's supposed to put gas in my car and they never, so I'm kind of low, can you cover me for the gas? And I guess I was being silly there, but I think it was the principle. I mean, the gas, I could have just flung her $10 and it would have been good. I was like, nah, I'm not going to cover you for no gas, because I didn't like to be placed in that aspect. And thinking about it, I probably could have got it, and but I felt like if I did, I was paying $10 for the bang in it. So
Oh gosh.
I know. I mean, we all have, I looked at it afterwards. I put on the thread, and people were like, "What?" Because I know there's mans in the thread. There's mans that are like, "What, $10? I burned $10 for jokes." You know what I mean? So I know there's people thinking, "What's going on?" But it was more of a principle thing there. But when I thought about it, I was like, you know what? You should have. I could have just said, "Yeah, I got you for the gas," and man, now I'm not paying you. But that's even worse. So that's kind of how it went. So I think that one of the other thing Rude Boy was mentioning was hands test. Is it Rude Boy? You talking about the doing the hand thing? Let
Yeah,
me.
he dropped that before you recorded.
Okay. My hands thing that I do is I do agree with the touching and the Kino. I'm not a big touchy guy. Maybe it's my British upbringing and so forth, but I'm not. I don't normally grab and hug and kiss lizards in public. I'm pretty stone cold when it comes to that. But what I do myself is if we're sitting down, I'll grab their hands and just say, I like hands. I like to read the patterns. You've got the patterns in the hands that you can see. Like when you, yeah,
Oh,
yeah, yeah. I'll just look
you
in
read
there.
the palm.
Yeah, I don't really mention anything. I just say, oh, and they usually have it. It's carved out like an M. You have that M pattern. Even if there's not an M, I'll say the M is coming anyway. So I'll look at that and say, yeah, it looks like you're coming into money or something. I try not to say money because I feel that if I say it, it's gonna go down a gold digging route, and that's really not the route I'm trying to, you know, engage or bring out in her. But I just grab, but it's just my excuse to touch her hands and feel them. And as you said, when you do the handstand, it gives me an excuse to grab them. And I've had a lizard that I beat this after the date, because I was grabbing her hands, and she said afterwards, because she's pretty expressive, she said, when you grabbed my hands, that was it. That was when she said I was going to, but the hands sealed the deal. So I, so she
You
told,
got them big hands or not? You got them big mitts, don't you?
yeah, I grabbed them and I was like going through her hands, and I thought, different things were going through her head and so forth. So yeah, she told me after, she was like, yeah, when you got my hands, that was when I knew it. Because after that, she said, we cleared the bill. It's like we were done. She's like, yeah, do you want to go back to my place? So she said that. And I was like, yes. So
You bring up a good point, Moma. Is
yeah,
like when after you bang a chick, it's always a good idea to debrief her to figure out like when did she know that she wanted to bang. Like that's so crucial because you will always think it was like 45, 60 minutes, 2 hours later, and she was ready to go like minute 12.
I,
And because you never really know. Most guys don't realize their power, like how they affect people, and like they keep looking for these signs, like they're looking for the doggy bowl eyes, or like like the hair flick, or grooming or whatever, and sometimes you just don't get that, and so it's important to like to actually talk to this particular chick that you bang, like when did you know that I was the one or whatever, and she'll tell you, and it might not be exactly when it happened, but it'll give you good information for the next chick that you bang. That like you can go faster, you can be more bold much earlier.
you've made a very, very valuable point, because I think Roosh also opened the thread because he wasn't sure. And I've blown a lot of dates where I don't know what happened. You know what I mean? I'm going on a date and I'm like, what went wrong? Because if I know what went wrong, I know what I can draw back on. So I think asking for that debrief afterwards helps a great deal. And I've gone out and met lizards that I think I've slowed the interaction down for them. I went out the other night with one guy from the forum, Catch 22, and I saw a group of lizards. Like two of them were Dominican and one was Jamaican. So I went there, and in retrospective, I realized, because I went like a dumbass, I went and got the number. You know what I mean? When they were merry that night, and they were really looking to close it, because I got my hand all over one of them, and they're like, "Oh, don't she have a shelf for a booty?" And I said, "Yeah, let me see that." And I'm like, "You know what?" So I'm grabbing. I'm like, "Yeah, it looks like I could put a drink here still." You know what I mean? So I'm grabbing that, and I'm like, "But I'm still trying to play cool instead." And I think I sometimes try and play cool too much and not turn the thirst up. And I'm finding that I may at sometimes need to turn the thirst up and say, you know what, long things done, we're done with all that. Let's go and make it happen. And yeah, that's
Well, it like I think one of the pleasures of the game is like when you start cold approaching, and like you cold approach a chick that you don't think you have a chance with, and you bang her anyway. Like I was at this club. I think it might have been a DJ contest or something I was judging, right? And like I saw like this cute little girl, like maybe 5'4". She had the body I like, nice curly hair, but she didn't look like, even though she was at something that I was at, she didn't look like she was into my kind of guy. And so like I basically the whole thing's ending, and like I see this girl and like I know I have to talk to her. So the whole thing's starting to wind down. It's like maybe I don't know, maybe let's say 1:10, and the club's gonna close at 2. So like I seek her out, and I distinctly remember coming at her from the back, which is like a big pickup artist no, never talk to a girl from the back. But like I either grabbed her hand, or I touched her shoulder, and she turned around, and I just started talking to her, and she was so receptive. And I was like, this if I'd have just listen if I listened to that the fearful voice in my mind, I would not have talked to this girl. And like we kissed that very night, and it's probably the best kiss I've ever had in my entire life. I can still remember every single word, every single piece of it. I'm like, this is incredible. I mean, she ended up being a virgin, but I ended up taking her virginity, which is, I don't know, something that, I don't, for whatever reason, the forum seems to like. To me, it was nothing but a burden. But like, I remember talking to her, like, like, hey, how did you know that you liked me? And she was like, yeah, this really cute guy walked up to me and started talking to me. And I'm like, I never think of myself as like a really cute guy. And if you ask my exes, they're like, man, I fuck that motherfucking jack teeth looking bastard. And but like when they're into it, like you're the best thing ever. And like that's one of those things that you got to realize. Like you're never gonna know what you uncover. Like another chick was at the same job, or was at a job that I was working. I'm working in the professional section. She's working in the admin section, and this chick is a little bit older. I'd probably put her in her 40s, and I was like early 30s, right? But yeah, she had a rack that just wouldn't quit. And like, she's wearing high heels, and I'm like, yo, like I gotta make a play. I gotta make a play. Otherwise, I'm just gonna and she was wearing a ring. Let me add that fact to it too.
Oh
A
man.
nice big diamond ring. And like I found her, I kind of, like got her off to the side while she was doing something, and she was receptive. I'm like, oh wow. So I don't know. I'm sure I've told some of this story on the forum, but like, yeah, we got together, and like, she'd come to my spot, we'd knock it out, and then she'd go back home, take care of her kids, and I guess her husband. Well, the husband figured something out and threw her down the stairs. And
Damn.
she called me, like he's flipping out. He threw me down the stairs. Me and my daughter are staying in a hotel the night, and I'm like, yo, this is way too much. So like she pulled back from that, but I keep thinking about all the signs that I shouldn't talk to her. We worked in the same building. She was married, she was older, but despite all of that, like and she didn't look like the type that like would really get down and dirty with one of the brothers, as it were. But no, she was very receptive, very receptive. And it was like the sex was just like unreal because I hadn't been with an older woman at that point. And it was just, yo, like all the stuff you read about, like why you bang older chicks. I'm like, you're totally right. And it was, but it's one of those things where, the cold approach, like you have to stop listening to the things that tell you no and start listening to the things that tell you yes
Yeah.
and do it
You.
because otherwise you're just never gonna know. These girls that you're not supposed to bang, like a brother like myself, I'm supposed to be at, I'm almost 40, so I should be, talking to like 35-year-old Delta Sigma Thetas that are professional, that have their MBAs. They drive a C-class Mercedes, and they want the whole, they want the Michelle and Barack experience, and like that's the kind of girl I'm supposed to be with, and that's the kind of girl that's supposed to be receptive to me. And I date everything but that. So
Good point.
girls
I,
that
Good
like,
point.
I think yeah, you doing the lizard, the work lizards, to me, I think it's kind of, personally, I'm kind of apprehensive of dealing with the work lizards, because if it goes wrong, that's my money messed up. You know what I mean?
I've been in that situation. But all right, so I give you another one. Well, I actually,
Actually, just a quick to interject, I lost a job like that. So, and it was
I,
over a Filipino lizard, and she was kind of cute still. But yeah, lesson learned. I commend you, Archie. I don't go down that street anymore. But continue.
I don't touch it too much either anymore. This is probably the last time that I dated somebody at work. But all right, yeah. There's a forum on the story about that I wrote just recently about Darla and Charity. And Darla was a girl that I knew at work, and like we were supposed to hang out on a Friday, but like Charity, her best friend, I think her husband was divorcing her, and like she was all crying, and she's like, you can show up, but I understand if you don't, we can do a rain check. I decided to show up. And the way that story ends is, Darla walks off, or we're all hanging out, and Charity jumps in my lap. The girl I'm not trying to date, and I end up at Charity's place, and we bang it out, and Darla goes her own way. So the way that story resolves itself is, like it was weird because I was not expecting that. Like I don't like being passed off. Like that's not who I was after. And once I find a chick, usually in the two set situation, you got to stick with the chick, even if you stick with the wrong one. Although that's limiting belief, you can always pull out of that. But so I so like me and Darla ended up like getting back in touch with each other. I'm like, yo, what was up with your girl? Why did you palm me off on her? So I made her the person that was the person to blame. Like why did you do that to me? Like, I thought we had something. And she was like, my girl took a liking to you and you seemed to like her and like I didn't want to stand in the way. And cool. Um, but like, we already had a connection, so built a little more. She would stop by my cubicle, I'd stop by hers. Anyway, so me and Darla end up getting together. And it was cool. And then we had one incident when she was like super drunk, and I realized this is not the kind of girl I want to be with. So I broke up with her. Thing is, we work in the same building, which was cool. Like we worked we worked I we both worked the same shift, and then I switched shifts. I switched to the night shift. What
Because
did
of
she,
her?
what does she do? So she stays as a day shift. There's like maybe a 2 hour overlap. So she started coming around to where I worked. Like I was on a different shift in a different building. She started coming around to I work after I broke up with her, and she was like, I know I'm annoying you, Archie, but I'm here to talk to my other friends. I'm like, you're just making things awkward. And like, so yeah, I've been in that situation. I haven't lost a job over it, but I definitely developed a rep. It's like, oh yeah, yeah, that guy will just fuck you and forget you. But that worked for me. Like I got a lot more interest because like I knocked off like a top dog at the job. She went for him. Well, I guess maybe I got a chance too. And like it is, so I don't recommend the work thing per se because a lot of bad things can happen, but sometimes like that's kind of all you can do. It's kind of like, well, she's here, I'm here, let's see if we can make something happen because like hooking up with somebody actually at work on the job while you're on the clock is a thrill, and it should be on somebody's bucket list.
I when I moved to Toronto, I was what did we do? It weren't not, and she was fiddling with each other because the job was dead. I just when I got there, they were asking for Canadian experience initially, so I just got survival job. So in survival jobs, you're just trying to get part. Really, what you're doing there is just trying to do anything to, you know, make things interesting and so forth. And the accent. I think my accent is starting to fade, even though I'm trying to hold on to it. But it's got a little bit of this and a little bit of that in it. But definitely then it was as at its strongest, and a lot of people were interested in it. So there's a chick that there we'd go in the corner, and the supervisor he knew what was up, but he never looked. So we kind of sat in the corner and fiddling with each other. But it never got to that stage, and so on and so forth. I tend to, but I've heard not to mess around with those at work because your money is key. If you have pum pum and no money, it's like what can you do? It doesn't pay the bills, right?
No, most definitely. I think probably the best. I want to say the best financial situation I think for the 21st century brothers coming up. Like a lot of the young guys, you guys should learn how to code or learn how to do things online and make your money outside of the employment context. And like I've been steadily working towards that. I've got a couple buddies that do something like that. They don't own property, they own like websites, they own e-commerce, and it's one of those things that like it if it's just you online making something, programming or like selling sports equipment, like you are setting yourself up to actually participate in the market in a way that you cannot do when you work for somebody. Like and like I know a lot of the podcasts you guys have is, to help out the younger brothers coming up, and I think that's one of the things that like we all need to learn, no matter what age you are, because you really, especially if you're black, you cannot depend on the power structure to look out for you, and I think that applies to everyone in general, but it particularly applies to black folks because when things happen, it hits us first.
It does. I agree, and that's definitely something. There's a guy called Is it Python? Something incorporated, but he started from scratch and he learned Python and so on and so forth. And he's been doing pretty well because he updates the thread with his progression. And he just one day just picked up something and started to code and blagged his way through into the job, and he's doing pretty well. So that's something that interests me because I think as we get older, I think a natural progression should be towards doing something for yourself. The earlier parts of your work career, your work life. Let's say you're 18 or whenever you've left school, you should. I mean, you have to understand what it is to be a professional. So you work
Yeah.
under someone, you work with a company, you get used to a routine, waking up on time, getting to work on time, providing whatever product you need to your employer, and so on and so forth, whatever service that they render and you render to them for them to render to the public. But after you understand that, after a while, you try and find out how you can become that entity rendering services to the public. I think that's a natural progression, especially as a male, because as males, we're supposed to be independent. We're not supposed to be under the yoke or whatever you want to call it of someone else. That's my personal belief, and I totally agree with you. I'm really trying to find that niche because we're now in an information era. You can find so much stuff online. There's some days that I actually am walking and it looks like I'm crazy because I'm chuckling to myself. I'm like, wow, I can find anything online. I can find work online. I've worked from home where I'm at home making money. When you know what I mean, like I found it online. You can find pum online. I've had pum lizards come to my yard. I never left a drum. I'm just there. They're like, oh, you look cute. I bet you get bear girls. I'm like, I'm trying. I'm like, what you saying? Come over then. All interaction online. Me sitting in my grimy boxer shorts on my chair. The whole interaction brought it through to my place. So I'm saying we're in such a wonderful era. We're in the information era that we really should utilize it. You can watch videos and so on and so forth. And that's something I need to do. I mean, I'm saying it myself. I need to implement what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I agree. Like I'm in Airbnb in DC right now, and the one of the other guys that's here, this young dude, white dude. He knows Linux and Python, and he can work for he does web work anywhere on the globe, wherever he wants to go, and it's enough for him to like just do whatever he does, and it's like, how did you figure this out at 22? And I'm like barely figuring it out now. But that's the new economy. And a lot of people do need to start taking part in that because you really cannot depend on corporate America. You can't depend on a lot of stuff. You really need to depend on yourself. And that might be one of the aspects I like most about the manosphere. Is that you generally need to be more self-reliant and stop relying on others. It's just where they're coming from with it. It's kind of they reached the right place, maybe not for the right reason.
I totally agree with you on that. Yeah, I think we've pretty much covered a whole gamut of spectrum of topics, and I mean, I could chat with you forever, man. Like it's just like you're just
I'm
unlocking.
Man,
just I'm just listening. It's just like poetry in motion. But anyway,
To,
go ahead.
man,
um,
feel free to hit me up again, man, because it's like in my regular life, I can't talk about game like I can talk about it with you guys, because my boys, they run through chicks, but they're not running through chicks with like some sort of like overall strategy or some sort of like like I mean they get the job done, and a lot of it's just like brute force effort, or like creating like a presence, an image, and like running a circuit, but it's kind of like, yeah, I can't really, it's kind of, yeah, I guess that's unusual with my group of friends because we don't really brag like, oh, you hit that. That doesn't happen with my group of friends, but that happens a lot more online. Like, yeah, yeah, got into that. It was kind of messed up because I don't know. It's a weird thing, but I'm glad I was able to talk to you guys, and like, whenever you want to chat again, like
For
I'm sure there's
sure,
some
for
other stuff we
sure.
can cover.
yeah, man, it's like there's so much to it could go on for ages. So yeah, just for to prevent the listeners from it going on forever and ever. But definitely for me, I enjoy it. It's a great pleasure having you on board, West Indian Archie.
Yeah.
Um,
Shout
you,
out to all the source code and Traveler Kai and to
yeah,
incredible, and
Yes, incredible.
all the other
Yeah,
guests so far.
yeah.
really enjoyed it, and yeah, my pleasure. I was really excited for you to come on and learned a lot. And yeah, we definitely will do this part two soon because I think you've got a lot to say. And um, yeah, we were actually talking before the podcast went on record. I kind of wish we had some of that on, but we can cover that again. And yeah, pleasure's all ours.
Great, great. And you lot can send emails to momalicious at gmail.com. So it's MOMALIS as in Sierra, H as in hotel, U as in umbrella, S as in Sierra at gmail.com. So if you got questions or so on and so forth, people that you think that you would like to hear on an interview and topics that you want us to expatiate upon, definitely put those in, send them in, or Hitman's up on the forum, leave a post in the thread, and that'll be that. But yeah, we're gonna tune this out. It was once again, Archie, was a great pleasure. Rude boy, um, great
Well,
pleasure, and so on and
yeah.
so forth.
As
And
always, what's this number 5 now?
this is, I think it's five. Yeah, it's five.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, Rude Boy's out. Archie, nice talking to you. We'll talk soon, and I'm out.
All right, peace.
Peace.
Yeah.